Welcome back to another episode of Women Talk Tech. And today I'm joined by Noemi, an investment associate at Yabeo Capital, with a focus on digital health investments. In this episode, we talk about her current role and her main motivation for pursuing a career in this field. We talk about what investors look for when a company is seeking funding and how much of an impact diversity has on a potential investment. We then spoke about a topic we are both super passionate about: women supporting women. And networking is such an amazing place to meet and build meaningful connections with people that can support your career. So it's important we all work together to build an environment and a networking culture that can help with this. Such a great chat. Thanks again for joining me. So, Noemi, tell me a bit more about yourself.
Sure, happy to be here. So my name is Noemi. I'm currently living in the beautiful Munich for around 1.5 years. Before that, I was living in Berlin for a couple of years, and originally I'm from Stuttgart. And I would say I have a pretty typical business background. Also started my career in management consulting, and now I'm working at the venture capital firm Yabeo, where I'm part of the investment team.
Nice, nice. How exciting. And just to kind of kick things off on the D&I topic, I like to always think about, okay, what does D&I mean to each and every person? Because I'm conscious that it does mean or can look like different aspects for everyone. So yeah, what does D&I mean to you and why do you feel like it's an important topic?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So to me, DNI means that no matter which background you have, so it can be gender, it can be nationality, or also sexuality of a person, that in the end, everyone is being provided with the same opportunities throughout their career. And I think that sometimes this means that you first have to really break into the traditional thinking and address the unconscious bias that is out there that all of us, no matter which background we have, do have. And this has just developed over the past decades, so you can even say centuries, and it's so inherited in our societal norms. So it's really difficult to have a change here. And so I think it's important to start really think about what are the true hurdles that now, as part of this podcast, we talk about women. So that women in this case face, and especially in the working world in this context, and then really think about what could be reasonable D&I initiatives, what could really promote the inclusion of women and address the hurdles that women are facing. Because I think no matter how equal opportunities sometimes may look like at the surface, in reality, there is still a lot of improvement potential out there.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think, like you said, right, underneath all of that is the unconscious bias, which is in all of us, whether we kind of think about it or not. And I guess that's why it's unconscious. It's from our background, it's from our upbringing, and we don't even realize that we're even thinking with a bias. It's just how our brains have been, wired as such. It's quite interesting.
Exactly, you grew up with it, and you were influenced by it, by society, how the role of women and men is portrayed out there. And I think the first step is really to make this conscious, to make people think about it and realize, there are some challenges that I, as a man, or I, as a white person, don't face, and yeah, to start this conversation. Yeah.
Mm, amazing. And tell us a bit more about your role at your current company. I know you're working at Yabeo Capital. What does your role involve? And I guess, how did you get into this sort of field of work?
Yeah, sure. So, as part of the investment team at Yabeo, I focus on our health tech investments. So, that includes everything from sourcing and analyzing potential new early stage deals to supporting our existing portfolio companies. And this could be any kind of support from follow on fundraising to more operational or strategic support. So, I would say that overall, my job includes a lot of talking to inspiring founders and their vision to change something in the still, yeah, I have to be honest here, the pretty analog and inefficient healthcare world. And that's very, very fascinating to see how how motivated they are to really tackle those challenges. And it's not easy as a startup in the healthcare system to make a change, because it's so regulated, and also the foundation is often not given from an infrastructure perspective to really implement those new innovative solutions. So it's really always really fascinating to talk to the founders. But of course, I'm also exchanging a lot with fellow investors, and exchange about how the current VC environment is evolving, and also the overall health tech industry. So that's also very exciting. And then, of course, once we proceed with conversations with companies that are really interesting to us and really fit into our investment thesis, then I really dive deep into the business model. And yeah, that's also always very exciting to really understand how the model works, and how the impact can be eventually created out of that. So I think how I got into the job, I was always fascinated by new business models and technology developments in different industries, which really have the potential to disrupt an entire sector. This could be by providing new services, or improving customer experience, or just creating efficiencies in an analog industry. And before my first full-time job as a consultant, I already had some experience working at startups. And also within the consulting job, I initially focused on digital transformation and venture building projects. And then some point last year, I decided that I really want to focus more on that space again. So this time from an investor perspective, but really diving into also a specific sector. And that's why I then decided to change to the venture capital industry and started working at Yabeo.
Nice, nice. And I know you mentioned when we spoke previously that I guess more traditional companies still herd biases, that it can be quite challenging to work in quite male dominated spaces. How would you say this has maybe affected your career?
So I think overall, if you're working in industries where there's already quite some awareness about D&I, and there are also some changes that are being implemented to promote equal opportunities, and I would say consulting is, as a consulting firm, part of that kind of industry. You experience in general pretty open-minded colleagues who have a very inclusive and supportive mindset, especially on the junior or lower management ranks.
Yeah.
But of course, if you look at the overall setup of the entire company and the system around it, also the higher you go, the less female representation there is. And this still, of course, has an impact on the overall way of doing business,
Yeah.
which makes it then eventually more challenging for women to be heard overall.
Interesting, interesting. And I'd love to dive a bit deeper into kind of not what investors look for, but it's always kind of interesting to kind of hear it from your point of view. So, let's say a company's in a growth phase. What as an investor do you look for? And I guess my question is, how much does diversity impact, say, potential investment, and how does that kind of come into play at this point?
So, of course, when we look at a new potential investment opportunity, the team is very important. The team setup, how the team is presenting themselves, but also, of course, the background of the team. And here, I think initially we look at what does the team have for experience professionally, looking at education, but then also personalities, and how do they complement each other, because especially in an early stage company, few people take on a lot of diverse tasks, so this needs to be a really really great fit, and we also assess that then in the due diligence. I think the further company progresses and the more it grows, it becomes more and more important also to look at who you bring in to keep the team diverse. because once you scale, you want to attract the right talent, right, to be able to really support that growth and support that scale. You also distribute more responsibilities to a broader senior management, but also to the extended team. So you really want to think about how to set up the organization, what is attractive to employees. And I think there are a diverse culture, diverse teaming, diverse leadership styles also are very important to bring into a company, to promote a balanced perspectives,
Yeah.
and eventually then also um, support the growth, from the organizational setup.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so interesting. I think you mentioned their balanced perspectives, and in my opinion, right, that is more than just gender. I don't think by having, male and females, of course, you get a balanced perspective, but it's so much more than that. It's like your educational background, it's where you grew up,
Exactly. Yeah.
your culture, your background, more than just what you are gender wise.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely agree. Perspectives come from different backgrounds, and this could be anything beyond gender as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned that I know that you're rolling out a new initiative, which looks at promoting diversity in the portfolio companies. And I guess really, in that early stage, the portfolio companies you're working with, they may not have thought about D&I, they may already have everything in place. But what does this new initiative involve, depending on how much you can share with us?
Yeah, so I think this initiative from our impact fund. So next to our health tech and fintech investments, we also do impact investments through our separate fund, also with great portfolio companies in there. And there we have ECG criteria in place that the companies are rated against. Of course, naturally, we are looking at the final impact they have, and we thought about why not rolling this out also to our other portfolio companies in the different segments. So that's why we are also bringing that in. Of course, as you mentioned, some of the companies they already have some more advanced criteria themselves. It also depends a bit on the countries they're located in, because there's different emphasis for the reports as well, that you already have statements about diversity as part of it as well or not. And depending on that, we are trying to getting more into this conversation with the companies in health tech and fintech as well, to really have a different perspective on the company and different improvement points as well, next to just financial or operational points we usually look at.
Yeah, yeah. And this is maybe a silly question, but do you think that in, say, fintech companies or health tech companies, the kind of diversity alters or changes? Do you find that in health tech companies there is a lot more diversity than, say, in fintech? Just from your experience.
I wouldn't necessarily say so. Well, I think fintech, yeah, in general, is a pretty male-dominated company, looking at the financial industry. But of course, also in health tech, you have a lot of founders with a medical background, and there you also, I think, have some male domination still in place. So I think, of course, there are some differences between industries, but overall in the entrepreneurial space, you still see that there are more male founders and also senior management teams around. But as I said, I think maybe it's also a bit of a country perspective or question here, that in some countries where there's already where there's more flexibility, also in the working culture, that there you see already some more women. But usually, if you look at the executive position, then it's always very skewed towards men, no matter the industry and the space.
Yeah. Yeah. No, really interesting. It's yeah, I kind of not assumed, but I assumed that, I guess, in different industries, diversity may kind of change and go up or down. But you're right. I guess from like that founder level, we still haven't got to a place where there's an equal number of, say, female founders. So even from the very early stages, we're already kind of hitting the kind of male-dominated space.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think the more the company grows, of course, this doesn't have to stay male dominated. But if you look at senior management team, if you look at the board constellation, then it's becoming pretty obvious.
Yeah, and
Also throughout the growth trajectory.
I guess even then from the investor point of view, right? Would you say that there are more male investors in your company than there are female?
Um, I think here again, also we looking at our fund, but also other funds as well.
Yeah,
Again, I think you have to take into account the seniority.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think this is in general a very crucial point because there are a lot of initiatives, different industries, also in consulting. You focus on recruiting more women into the companies, and I think this is very critical, very important point. But then I think it's also as equally important to keep women in the industry and to really create a sustainable environment long term for women. And of course, not all women want to stay forever in their career and may develop different priorities in life. But for those who would like to and just think it might be not manageable once you have a family, to create the flexibility and the surrounding to facilitate that on the one hand, and then on the other hand to also have more role models in senior positions who show women the path to these higher ranks, and that there are some women who achieve that and who can be potentially also their mentors. So I think looking at the whole career trajectory and how women are represented is very, very important, and look behind the surface of just an overall ratio of gender in the whole company.
yeah. No, totally. I think it's so much more than that. And one topic I know that we were both super passionate about was the idea of kind of women supporting women. And it's so weird because when I look back at my background and say my school career, I went to an all-girls school. So there was literally 150 girls per year. When I got to like kind of sixth form, where we're kind of college, say, there was
Mm.
6 boys in the year compared to like the 150 girls. So I've always been in an environment whereby I don't want to say that the support was always there, but there was always so many girls, so you were always supported by other females. But I think when I stepped into the working world, it was very different, of course. And I was like, there are so much more men. Where are all the ladies that I was kind of in school with? But yeah, I guess the idea of women supporting women is something which is talked about so much. And I do think I would love to kind of shine a light on it a bit more. I think I know why it's important, but from your side, why do you think the notion of women supporting women is really important in kind of today's world?
I think if you look at the male networking culture, of course, traditionally there were more male in the working world, so they also developed this kind of networking style. And sometimes you see this kind of let's call it boys club behavior still, where you go together to cigar bars, you go golfing together, and then you really create that bond outside of the actual work setup. And I think this bond that you create in those kind of setups is sometimes underestimated, what kind of effect it can have on your career, because these situations are really the place to build a supporting system as well. So
Yeah.
if you need something, you can think about this person. You don't or you are not hesitating to give them a call, because you spend also this kind of time together, to get to know each other on that level. And I think that creates business opportunities that you wouldn't get if you don't participate in those kind of networking. And I
Yeah.
think looking at the Me Too movement, for example, I think it's a very important discussion. And I think there's also still a lot in the gray zone where men get away with certain behavior. But what it also created, I think, is that some men are now very conscious about it and are trying to avoid networking with women, especially on a one-on-one basis, too much. Be going for a business lunch or dinner together, or having like a catch-up drink after the project work at the hotel bar, or these kind of things you would naturally do when you are having a business partner, or men between each other. And I think this makes it then even more difficult for women to create these kind of business connections. And I think that's why I think it's really important that women start supporting women more, that we also create a stronger community among each other to exchange about experiences, but then also to have a stronger bond in a business setup, and support each other throughout our careers.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's so important. And I think, when we spoke as well, I think we spoke a lot about how companies tend to focus a lot on the events to kind of recruit more women, but yet do not much to keep them there. You mentioned it earlier, right? Or even kind of
Yeah.
support them on their kind of entire career trajectory. And I think that's why the notion of having a support network outside of your working organization is really important. I guess, why do you think this is, and how do you think we can change that kind of, I guess, support that women can have on their career trajectory?
Mm. Yeah, I think the simple answer is that it's just way more difficult to really change entire processes, mindsets, culture of a company, or also an industry which was traditionally male dominated. So it's easier to start bringing new women in than really to adapt the system to change, and to create a working environment that is more sustainable for women, as mentioned earlier. And I think the whole discussions around quota is valid to accelerate that kind of systematic change, to make the whole environment more women friendly, to bring perspectives from women men just don't really think about at the top, also into the discussions, and to promote that the top down throughout the organization. And as I also said, I think it's very helpful for young female, for new professionals, if they have some role models on top, and some women they can reach out to, speak to, um, in a mentor mentee relationship, and address questions they might not dare to ask to a male mentor. So I think this is also something that is quite underestimated, how helpful these connections, mentorship relationships are throughout your career.
Mm. And what do you think that we can do to create this networking culture? I mean, it's really interesting actually, because I went to a networking event on Tuesday evening, a fintech event, amazing. And of course, like you mentioned, right, finance is normally quite a male dominated space. And then combine that with tech, and again, extremely male dominated. But there was actually a lot more women than what I expected. I must admit, especially going into it, I thought, will there be any others? Am I going to be the only one there? So, I mean, what do you think we could do to kind of create that networking culture?
So I think overall there are already some great initiatives out there. So be it through WhatsApp groups focusing on women in specific industries, or some individuals, some more senior leaders starting some gathering among women. So depending on who you already know, you get invited into those kind of gatherings, etc. So I think what would help is to have some more larger industry organizations or industry networks to really support these kind of events where women are brought together throughout different stages of their career, also from different industries or adjacent industries, so that they have the opportunity to not only network within their own company, but also outside, to see how other women are evolving in their careers. And that these larger organizations also focus a bit more on that, to create awareness and opportunities. And then also for the employers, that they see this as a opportunity for their employees to develop in their career as well, and to promote that they attend those kind of events.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess what can we do to, I guess not encourage more women to go, but I think, when we spoke as well, I know you mentioned that not men tend to have more networking events, but men tend to be a lot more present at these events. What do you, I mean, large organizations throwing these would be great, but how can we still encourage more women to go? Do you think it needs to be like another woman throwing these events, or does it need to be, say, like you said, a WhatsApp group coming together and encouraging more women to go?
Yeah, I think one reason why women don't attend is just yeah, awareness that
Yeah,
you're not aware of these kind of opportunities that are out there. So you really need to educate about this whole topic more. And then you need some initiators who are already part of these circles, or who are already more in a leadership position, have a wider network, who can bring in these thoughts to the younger professionals. I think yeah, everyone needs to work on this together
yeah,
to, and that's back to the women supporting women topic. So from the women at the top really initiating this, bringing this into the organization, or as a initiative as well, and then everyone inviting their network as well, and so creating this snowball effect. And then I think in the end, of course, it comes back to each individual as well. So of course, I also attend a lot of networking events, and sometimes they can be a bit draining. So I always ask myself, okay, what is the goal of this
yeah.
event? What do I want to get out of it? And to really intentionally go to networking events that are of my interest, be it personally, and then also from a business perspective, of course. And yeah, to not just attend something and think, oh, it was overwhelming again, but really going to those events that matter. And I think this is each individual's work also to do, to support their own personal development in that way.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think awareness is important. We have to make more women aware of events like this. But equally, I don't want it to somewhat feel like a chore. We have to go because that's what's going to, help us do well in our career. Like,
Yeah.
but like you said, right, you have to find events that are meaningful to you, that you can actually see the benefit in them, and set yourself a goal. Like, when you're going to this event, what do you want to achieve by going? It could be the case that I want to kind of connect on LinkedIn with 5 people in my industry that are have somewhat agreed informally, formally, whatever the case may be, to support me and mentor me. I think you have to go
Hmm.
there with I guess with an idea or a goal, like you said, otherwise it
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
feel draining. Socializing in itself is quite a lot, right? So to speak, in terms of not the socialization, I love it, but I know that for some, it can be quite intimidating, and it can be quite a lot. It can be overwhelming. So yeah, like you said, having a goal when you attend those events, I
Hmm.
think will make more women want to go.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think it's also not only before the event, but then after the event, think about, okay, who did you meet? Um, who did you connect with well? Also, again, professionally, but also personally, because you never know how personally can turn into professionally as well. So think about it from a long-term perspective. And yeah, really, if you're not already connected on LinkedIn, reach out there, but with a personal note, and maybe meet for lunch sometime later, or just starting a new relationship. But also, again, yeah, intentionally, where you think you already had a good conversation start through the event, and continue that relationship.
Yeah, yeah, you're so right, because it's not just about the now, and it's not about, okay, what can I gain from this person as we speak? It could be the case in a few years' time, who knows where that person may be in the future? Who knows where you may be in the future? But I think, like you said,
Exactly. Yeah.
these relationships are so key, and I think building on them and navigating a new relationship is important for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. So you never know when paths cross again. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Honestly, well, no, thank you so much for joining me. It's been such a great conversation, and yeah, I think for women who are maybe a bit intimidated to go to networking events, find one that's meaningful for you. Find one which you think is going to be important to you, and just go for it. You know, it can be overwhelming, it can be nerve wracking, but you'll walk away from it with five more relationships than what you had when you didn't go. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Couldn't agree more. Thanks so much for having me.